Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to these 5 topics that we have tonight. They're all quite entertaining and interesting.
Well, you should feel very good because this is a redemption year for you. You're getting bashed by hundreds of people on TikTok over a particular take.
Yeah.
And actually, at this current moment through 10 weeks, you actually have one team in a better position than they actually are. So maybe you're way ahead of the game with this one. Obviously, that's the Chicago Bears, and we're going to talk about them immediately with the first topic of today's show because we do have some breaking news. Shane Waldron's out as the OC of the Chicago Bears after 2 games where they haven't scored a single touchdown, 9 points against Arizona, one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and then only 3 measly points against the Patriots defense, which really has looked pretty pedestrian since the departure of Bill Belichick. The Bears couldn't do anything. Offensively, they were inept, even though they have a pretty stacked roster, as everybody predicted going into the year that they would do well. We even had some people said they'd make the playoffs. One top-tier analyst, Nick Wright, had them going to the Super Bowl, which is pretty crazy. You, on the other hand, had a more of a, I would say, conservative pick. You thought rookie quarterback.
I said they win 4 games.
5 games. You went 5 and 12. If you went 4 and 13, that'd be pretty bad. You had them going 5 and 12. Actually, let's bring up your prediction before I ask you the question. Now, this was your prediction. They would beat the Titans, beat the Colts, beat the Panthers, beat the Commanders, and beat the Patriots. This is reality. They lost to the Colts. They did beat the Titans. They beat the Rams, Panthers, Jaguars, lost to the Commanders, and lost to the Patriots. So they're 4 and 5 right now after starting off 4 and 2. You had them going 5 and 4 at this point. But my question to you is, do you think that this firing of Shane Waldron will make a massive difference for the Chicago Bears moving forward?
No, I don't. I don't think it's going to make much difference at all, actually. He was fired only after 10 months on the job. It's his first year. And he was fired after Eberflus promised changes and adjustments, and this was the big one. Passing game coordinator Thomas Brown has been promoted to OC. He was the Panthers OC last year and lost that job when the new head coach came. Eberflus, his comment, after evaluating our entire operation, I decided that it is the best interest of our team to move in a different direction with the leadership of our offense. This decision was well thought out, one that was conducted deliberately and respectfully. Okay, well, the Bears haven't changed OC in the middle of the season since 1970. This is the first time they've done it in the middle of the season, changing their offensive coordinator. They've lost 3 straight. They only scored 27 points and averaged only 278 yards per game, 3rd lowest in the NFL. Waldron was previously the OC for the Seahawks for 3 years, replacing Luke Getsy, and this is interesting. He was fired after only 2 years on the job and was just fired by the Raiders. Their OC, he was their OC, and they fired him. They expected Waldron to be a great teacher for Caleb Williams, and I guess that really hasn't come true. You just look at the Bears. They overhauled the majority of their offense in 2024. Coaching staff was changed. They dedicated high draft capital to the offense and the free agent resources to updating offense as well, including drafting Williams. And here's the result so far. Points scored, 24th in the league. Yards per carry, 28th in the league. Yards per pass, 30th in the league. Total yards, 30th in the league. Third downs, 31st in the league. Yards per play, 31st in the league. Not much to say for all of the work that they did. They're right at the bottom practically. Williams had his worst game against the Patriots, 16 for 30, 120 yards, since week 1 against the Titans when he only threw for 93 yards. His 1 for 14 on third downs. That's the worst for the Bears since 2012. He got sacked 9 times. He's been sacked 18 times in the past 3 games. Past 3 games are all losses. Williams has logged his 3 highest pressure percentages in these games, in these 3 games this year. Thomas Brown was the Panthers OC last year, as I mentioned. He was with the Rams for 2 years before that as a running backs and tight ends coach, and the offensive coordinator with Miami, the college team, before the NFL. Eberflus's comment here was Thomas is a bright offensive mind who has experience calling plays with a collaborative mindset. So let's just take a look for a second at the Bears' remaining schedule. I see them maybe winning one more game, luckily, if they get lucky, okay? Packers are going to lose. Vikings are going to lose. At the Lions are going to lose. At the 49ers are going to lose. Vikings at home, they're going to lose. Lions are going to at home, they're going to lose. Seahawks, they might win that one. And at the Packers are going to lose. These teams are all great teams. They're teams that are going to the playoffs. They're teams that have big winning records. I think they're like 21-6 right now, these teams. So I don't see the Bears. They think they've hit the bottom maybe here, and with this OC coordinator change, it's going to bounce them back. I don't see that happening. You look at Caleb Williams' stats, his QBR rating. First 3 games, 55.7, 51, and 80.8. Then he had a nice streak over 100, 106.6, 126.2, 124.4. And now he's regressed big time against the Commanders, 59.9. Against the Cardinals, 68.9. Against the Patriots, 63.2. They're going in the wrong direction. And they're going up they get probably the hardest schedule in the league now for the rest of the season. I stand by my my preseason comment.
As you should, because that's exactly. I mean, and think about it. You said they could only potentially win one game. Well, let's bring up the schedule one more time. If they only win one game, in reality, they make it to your number of 5-12. So you're bang on accurate because you actually at this point have them winning one more game than they currently have won.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a serious shot that 5-12 or 4-13 is seriously on the books now. But to your point, they in fact had the easiest schedule through 10 weeks. Now they have the hardest remaining schedule through the last 8 weeks. But Caleb Williams has been terrible these past 3 weeks. And yes, he did have a decent stretch, rookie quarterback, first 3 games growing pains. The next 3 games hit a very hot streak. But think about the teams that he beat, right? Let's go through it real quick. The teams that he did beat, the Rams, who were banged up, had nobody, right? The top 2 receivers on IR. The Carolina Panthers, who were just an abomination of an NFL franchise. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, couldn't get anything going. And Trevor Lawrence has regressed massively. And then the Tennessee Titans, all their wins have context to them. It's not that they just played great, were spot on, everything was perfect. No, the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis shot himself in the foot a couple times. He threw it backwards into the arms of a waiting bear who took it for a pick 6. That was the only reason why he really won that game. But Caleb Williams, in these last 3 games, he ranks dead last in completion percentage. He's 30 out of 35 qualified quarterbacks the past 3 games in passing yards. Yards per attempt, he's second to last technically. Cooper Rush is last, but if you want to include long-term starters, then Caleb Williams will be last. In passer rating, he's dead last. Overall, the Chicago Bears the past 3 weeks are dead last in points per game, yards per play, third down percentage, sacks, passing touchdowns, completion percentage, and first downs per game. They're just an abomination of a franchise. Will Shane Waldron fix a broken offensive line that we talked about early in the season? No, because the offensive line is still bad. Will they? Could they potentially fix the usage rate of DeAndre Swift? Potentially, but behind that bad of an offensive line, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. I do blame a couple. I blame a couple people here. One of them was Shane Waldron. The second one would be Matt Eberflus. He's just not a good head coach whatsoever. Because you go up against the New England Patriots, against a 2024 draft rival in Drake Maye. And what do you do against a defense that was 26th in yards per play allowed and 27th in yards per pass play allowed? They're also 28th in sacks and 27th on third down. What happens? They absolutely slack you, defensively. You give up 9 sacks. The Patriots really could do a lot very well against you, pressuring Caleb Williams. And speaking about Caleb, he's my third guy. I blame him because some of the throws that he made, I'm going to show him right now, these are basic throws. You and I can make some of these throws. I mean, these are not difficult. These are wide open receivers. This last one, or this second last one right here, to the running back. I mean, he wasn't even moving. That's not like a trick play. And this one rolling to the right, wide open target. So I don't want to hear, the pressure, the offensive line's breaking down. No, these are easy throws to make. These are not throws where you're doing tight windows or under pressure. These are wide open throws that he's just missing. And it's not only in this game, too. He's doing it a bunch throughout the season so far. So I blame 3 people, one of which just got fired. Well, the other one should have gotten fired maybe last year. And the third is a rookie quarterback. And the reason why I think we have to be harder than a lot of people are on Caleb Williams is because the expectation's set. If Victor Wembanyama, who is going into the NBA as the best prospect since either LeBron James or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, if he goes and averages 12 points a game, puts up 3 rebounds a game, with half an assist, we're going to go in here and say, what the hell are we talking about? How are you the best prospect that we've ever seen come out of college, or at least for Victor Wembanyama's case, coming out of international basketball? How are you the best prospect the NBA has to offer in decades if you're putting up dud performance after dud performance? Caleb Williams' comp was Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes' first year starting. 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, brings Tom Brady to...
He sat his first year, though.
Right, behind Alex Smith, but he did play the last, I think, few games.
Yeah.
But his first year starting, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, brings Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game to overtime. The following year wins a Super Bowl. And you could argue, I mean, think about just the weapons that Caleb Williams has. He has Keenan Allen, he has DJ Moore, he has Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift. Cole Kmet's a good tight end. The defense, second half of the year, everyone brings it up, was the number 1 defense in the NFL.
He's got an offensive line that rivals the Patriots for being the worst in the league.
I think they're 30th according to PFF. Patriots still ranked dead last. So I'm saying we have to expect more from Caleb Williams. And by the way, the Bears went 1 of 14 on third down. 1 of 14.
Yeah.
That is terrible.
Caleb Williams seems to be totally out of sync with his receivers. I mean, you look at some of those passes, you showed them. They weren't even close.
Right.
And the receivers were wide open.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. Does he know the routes they're running? Does he know what the offense is? I mean, those were design plays. I don't know why he missed those guys. It doesn't make sense to me. Is he not practicing enough? I mean, you'd think he'd have those down by 10 games into the season. He would have those basic plays down. I don't know. I think he may be a little overhyped. I think, and the Bears, They
You're out on them from the beginning.
I was out on him from the beginning. Eberflus, I never was sold on him.
That's true.
He's done at the end of the year, I'm
Absolutely.
sure.
Well,
he's going to be gone
He
for
may
sure.
not even make it to the end of the year,
not.
especially if you go on that big losing streak.
They're going to. I just don't see how they can avoid it. These teams,
the Lions,
the teams are much better than they are.
Right. The Lions, I would 100% agree with you. If Jordan Love gets
the Green
healthy,
Bay Packers,
they have a good defense. They actually, out of the top, they have two safeties in the top 5, and the Lions also have the number 1 and number 2 best safeties in the league. So right now, two teams in your own division have 4 out of the 5 top 5 safeties in the NFL right now. But here's something. Bill Barnwell on Caleb Williams. He decided to do a deep dive because we talk about, throws under pressure. Well, he's thrown more than 23% of his passes off target. The only other quarterback above 19% is Bryce Young, who just got his starting job back. It actually looks better this go-around. But here's the thing. Some of that is pressure, he admits, but also, I'm continuing this quote, he's also throwing a league worst 19.1% of his passes off target without pressure. without pressure.
Yeah, well, those three you showed there, he wasn't really under much pressure. He was rolling out, but he was open. It wasn't like he was about to be tackled.
Right. No, it's a very, very bad look for Caleb Williams right now. And I'll admit, my brother was on it from the beginning. John was on it from the very beginning. The last time he was on the show, was it last week before? He said Caleb Williams does not look good.
Yeah.
Spot on. And
well, maybe they should sit him down for a week or two like they did Bryce Young. Bryce Young is playing better. Bryce Young is playing better.
I saw a report today.
He won a game.
I don't know about
beat the Giants.
Right, and that's well, Daniel Jones, he's now about to get benched. That's my guess coming out of the bye. There's a report out there. I'm not fully sold on the source of it. Saying that there's some veterans that are speaking up about potentially wanting Tyson Bagent to come in and start over Caleb Williams. Just gonna throw it out there, see if it sticks. I don't know if it will.
Might be good for Caleb Williams to sit and watch for a little bit.
Maybe. But
take a little pressure off him and watch a couple games.
This is Mahomes 2.0.
Yeah.
If that's his comp, then that's my expectation for him. If your comp is Mahomes, just like how Victor Wembanyama was told to be the best prospect coming into the NBA since LeBron or Kareem, then I have to say, well, show it to me.
He looks nervous out there. He looks uncomfortable. You look at Drake Maye. Drake Maye looked very comfortable out there playing.
And he has the worst supporting cast and the worst offensive line.
He looked like he was having fun.
And that backs up my take. I feel solidified, especially because now we've seen in this draft class, Caleb Williams go up against two quarterbacks that were below him in the draft because obviously he was the first overall pick. Both quarterbacks look better and played better than Williams did.
Jaden Daniels had a game that nobody will ever forget. He threw that Hail Mary with negative 5 seconds on the clock. It was a 13-second play. He ran around the backfield for 12 seconds and then heaved the ball down the field. And Tyreek Stevenson, who was taunting the fans on the way down the field, tapped it right into the arms of waiting receiver.
Noah Brown, yeah.
For the ages, that play will stand.
Well, I feel really good saying, and I said this list last week, the way the rookie quarterbacks go right now, it's Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Drake Maye, and Caleb Williams. Bo Nix just outplayed Patrick Mahomes, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. So if you outplay Patrick Mahomes in a head-to-head matchup where you haven't beaten the Chiefs at home since 2015 and you lose on a blocked field goal, which I'm going to get into the numbers, is extremely rare over the past 24 seasons, then you're number two.
Yeah.
You're number two.
I would say Patrick Mahomes is having a setback year, actually.
Absolutely, yes.
They're lucky. If they had a poor record, people would be all over him for the way he played.
They find ways to win.
He missed two wide-open touchdown passes in this past game. He's thrown a lot of interceptions this year. He really has not played up to his expectations, but it's covered by the fact that they're 9-0.
Well, up until the 9-0 part, it kind of sounded like Caleb Williams not living up to the expectations.
Not as
missing
bad
wide open targets.
Not as mad as Caleb Williams. So.
Okay, obviously I agree with you there. Let's get into our next topic here, and what was an extreme shock. Me and my friends talking about this game, we were going crazy. This was a very turnover-riddled game. 7 interceptions amongst the two starting quarterbacks, but in the second half, down by 16, how did the Lions come back? With an interception by Carlton Davis, which started a massive comeback. It was 23-7 coming out of halftime, and the Lions responded with bringing it all the way up 26-23, completely unanswered points there, 19 unanswered points, with Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions, which is the most since Jameis Winston did it back in Week 6 of 2019. So this is ridiculous. The Lions found a way to win, while the Texans now have suffered back-to-back brutal losses, going up against the Jets a couple weeks ago and now against the Lions, both when they were leading and the offense looked great, and in the second half they completely fell apart. So my question is, do you think that this win for the Lions says more about them, or does the loss for the Texans say more about them?
I think the win says more about it's more about the Lions here. This is This game is one of the more inspirational wins of the Dan Campbell era, I think. How many teams would have folded under such circumstances with Campbell at the helm and every single player buying in to his philosophy? There is no quit in the Lions. And other takeaways I'd have here, the legacy of Jake Bates continues to grow. He's gone from selling bricks in Houston in 2023 to kicking the game-winning field goal for the Lions this week. Previously, he played for the Michigan Panthers of the UFL. He got NFL attention after some big kicks for that UFL team. I think he had a 64-yarder to win a game. On Sunday, he had a 58-yarder to tie the game, and then a 52-yarder to win the game. So he's something else, that guy. And he looks like his longevity in the NFL is pretty safe right now if he can keep doing that. I'd say another takeaway is they lose the turnover battle but win the war. 5 interceptions, 2 were tips, and 1 was a Hail Mary at the end of the first half. But the Lions could not protect the ball. I think it was pretty bad. Defense had 2 interceptions, but Goff turned it over on both subsequent drives with interceptions. The Lions would not have had to win without Carlton Davis's 2 interceptions, though, so that was big. The return of the run defense. Previously, the Lions had allowed Aaron Jones to run for 93 yards, 94 to Pollard, and 95 to Josh Jacobs. But Mixon only had 46 yards on 25 carries, so their run defense was good. Previous teams had success bouncing the ball outside against the Lions defense, but in this game against the Texans, the defensive ends and the linebackers maintained their lanes, and they really stopped the run. And just to add on, the defensive shutdown, they allowed 23 points in the first half, 0 the rest of the way. Despite the loss of critical players on defense, they're playing at an elite level, and I give Dan Campbell a lot of credit for that. On the other side of the ball, the Texans, I think, are they in trouble? They couldn't take advantage of 5 interceptions and win the game. Their O-line has injuries and was not great to begin with. Now they have 4 losses, 2 in a row. They're 6-4, but the Colts are 4-6, and the Titans are 2-7. The Jaguars 2-8. They're probably going to win the division by default, but they don't look like the same team as last year, Nate. I don't know. I'm a little worried about them.
And yeah, no, I completely agree with that. For me, though, and I think this is going to come as a little bit I was shocked by the fact that Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions. What I wasn't that surprised by is the Lions responding and coming up in a big way. So for me, this says way more about the Houston Texans because now this is back-to-back games. And honestly, we can even throw the Bills game in there because Josh Allen completed 30% of his throws, and that game was close, extremely close. But back-to-back weeks, we've seen a Texans offense look very good in the first half, and then the second half completely collapse, and at least in the game itself to an inferior team. The Lions in this game were the inferior team. Jared Goff, they kind of schemed when he was throwing interceptions after interception, and one of them was a Hail Mary, so I'm taking it out. He has 5 interceptions, but I'll give him 4 because of the end-of-half Hail Mary. A number of those were just bad throws, and they could not capitalize. In fact, they actually gave the ball right back. So Jared Goff throws the Hail Mary, gets picked off. Entering the first play of the second half, C.J. Stroud throws an interception. How did the Lions respond? By throwing another interception. Then the Lions defense is able to stop the Texans from scoring and forcing them to punt, which then leads to a Lions touchdown. C.J. Stroud throws another interception to Carlton Davis. But don't worry. How do the Lions respond? Another interception. And how do the Texans respond to that? Punt, missed field goal. So for me, this says way more about the Houston Texans because the Lions, we've seen this resiliency for the past couple seasons. When people doubted them out, what did they do? Going against Aaron Rodgers, they forced him to not be able to make a playoff appearance. The following season, what do? Still, people were like, well, can this team be good? 8.5 wins, 9 wins, 8 wins. We'll see. What do? They make it to the NFC Championship game, go up 17 points against the San Francisco 49ers, and choke away the lead on some bad coaching decisions. But still, doubted, came back, succeeded. What did they do in this season so far? They battled against the Minnesota Vikings, kicked a game-winning field goal to beat them by 2. You go up against the Dallas Cowboys, only allowed them to score 9 points. You go up against Seattle, who a lot of people thought that could be a toss-up game at the time. You dominate them and win by 13 points. Really, I mean, this team is truly incredible. Now you have a bit of a light schedule. Jaguars, who Mac Jones is going to be the quarterback there, and boy, oh boy, we're going to talk about him a little bit later. Yikes. Same old Max still exists. At Indianapolis Colts, Joe Flacco, will he still be the answer? The past couple weeks, he's had turnover issues, and the Chicago Bears, who currently have the worst offense in the NFL. So the next 3 games should be easy. But what does this do? Now, I'm gonna preface this before people rip on me in the comments. This was 11 days ago, but I think a large part of it still stands. I would flip 2 teams, probably 3 teams right now, but this was my top 10 teams list. I still believe in the first 2 teams in the first 2 rankings. Lions are still the best team in the NFL. This just proves that they're the best team in the NFL because what they don't need a blocked field goal. They don't need penalties to go their way. They don't need their offensive linemen to jump at every single snap. They don't need all these things to go absolutely perfect. They don't need a toe to be out of bounds or a quarterback to sail the ball over a receiver's head. What do? Hard run game, smart coaching, quarterback, besides this game, keeps the ball out of harm's way and completes his passes, and even when your best pass rusher is out for the season, still able to dominate. So yes, Carlton Davis had 2 interceptions, and it was a beautiful way to respond to a bad first half.
They don't need Dan Campbell to gamble.
Right. My MVP,
that's a big thing. I think that's a big thing this year, a big difference, because he lost some games for them with his gambling last year.
Correct.
And particularly the NFC Championship game. Wow, that's a big game, Dan. Can't let that happen again this year.
He hasn't needed to. He hasn't needed to.
But as I said a couple of weeks ago, we'll see when they get to the playoffs and the stakes are the highest and the teams are the toughest and everyone's playing very hard to win the game because either you win or go home, whether he'll be in a position where he has to gamble. And will he? I'm waiting to see.
Well, I think, yes. Well, Carlton Davis had 2 interceptions, and they were great. My, I guess, MVP of the game for me is Brian Branch. He's having a phenomenal year. Him, and by the way, was it Kelvin Joseph? I'm looking at this very briefly. I don't have it off the top of my head. They are currently, Kirby Joseph, excuse me. They are currently the top 2 safeties in the NFL. The Detroit Lions, who the past 5 or so seasons have had the worst passing defense and one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, currently possess the top 2 safeties in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And Carlton Davis, his rating just got boosted.
Yeah, well, my MVP was Jake Bates.
Well, yeah. No, by the way, he's perfect on field goals this season. He's perfect.
58 and 52.
They were millimeters.
Yeah, he just made him.
You see the shadow of the ball in the goalpost every time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is way more about the Texans. There is an issue in Houston. The second half offense is abysmal. The Chargers had a bad second half offense. The Texans just keep regressing and regressing and regressing. How many points did they put up in the second half? A big goose egg. 0. 19 unanswered points for the Detroit Lions after Jared Goff was handing the ball away like it was candy on Halloween. That's all he was doing. A Houston defender walks up. Can we have the ball? Sure. Here you go. That's all he was doing the entire game.
Two of the interceptions were tips, and one was the Hail Mary. So, I mean, he really had two.
The tips were bad though.
The 2 legit.
I think
2 legit interceptions. I like Jared Goff.
I mean, the way he's been playing. I mean, it's a great story. You get thrown out by your the team that drafted you. You weren't supposed to actually be a quality piece. It was to get off your contract. And what do? Yes, the other team wins the Super Bowl, but the way that you're doing, the culture you built, now people believe in you. You're lifting up the city of Detroit with how well you're playing. I feel like everybody now is a part Lions fan. I don't see a lot of people being discouraged or hating on the Lions.
Oh, I don't either.
It's a great story. Dan Campbell's a likable figure. His locker room speeches are amazing to listen to. Jared Goff is playing at a nice clip. They have the best running back 1-2 punch combo. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Mm-hmm. They find a way to win. They had no running in this last game. The Texans stopped their run dead cold.
Did a good job.
Yeah.
Well, also, I'll give the Lions credit. They also did a tremendous job stopping the run. Joe Mixon had 1.8 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I think at one point, I could be wrong. I was looking at it briefly. He had like 9 carries for like 4 yards or something like that. Like, that's insane. Without Hayden Hutchinson, your best defensive player, the best defensive player up until he got hurt, the best defensive player in the NFL, also the best pass rusher in the NFL, he's gone. And you're still able to dominate, I would say dominate defensively, because there's a lot of these red zone plays. First half, there was a touchdown, but it was field goal, field goal, field goal. That could have been touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Instead, you're able to stop him, which is massive. So, for me, the Lions still number 1 team in the NFL. They don't need things to go perfect for them to win. They don't need certain circumstances to happen. They are simply a head down, keep it moving. We're going to just outplay you when it matters. That's kind of how Dan Campbell's been running the ship since he got there.
Yeah.
Bad first year, and then finally building a culture, have people believe in you, finally biting kneecaps, and look at you. I think you're a serious Super Bowl contender.
So do I.
So there it is. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, the Chiefs somehow remain undefeated still after their narrow victory over the Denver Broncos, as well as Mac Jones is back, and Mac Jones very well may be gone very soon. We'll talk about that right after this.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So the Chiefs were able to narrowly escape death from the sense of Will Lutz's foot. They ended up blocking a kick, a 35-yard field goal, which keeps them undefeated. It was pretty great. 4 or 5 guys broke to the left side of the field goal blocking unit. Were able to block Will Lutz's kick. They somehow remain undefeated. Bo Nix had a tremendous game, 22 of 30, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Mahomes, mediocre game, I would say, 28 of 42, 266 yards, 1 touchdown. If we're doing quarterback rating, passer rating, Bo Nix 115.3, Mahomes 92. So technically, Bo Nix outplayed Mahomes, but I want to know, do you think the Chiefs should be actually celebrating that they're undefeated after a performance like this that was on Sunday?
Well, you always celebrate after a win. I mean, wins can be ugly, and this one was kind of ugly for the Chiefs, but they did win it 16-14. They had more points on the board at the end of the game than the Broncos did, and that's what counts in this league. Doesn't really matter after all said and done. The record is Chiefs win, Broncos lose. My takeaways from this, I have four of them. The blocked field goal, number 1. Linebacker Leo Chenal blocked it. It's interesting, the Broncos blocking was screwed up on this. They shaded the blocking to Justin Reed, who had blocked a field goal last year against the Broncos, and they were worried about him. And Chenal bowled over the line to get his paw on the football. But if you look, there's some stills of that play, and just before he kicked it, the Chiefs have got 4 or 5 guys with their arms up. Just looking at that picture with the ball about to be kicked, it looked like, hey, they're going to block it, and they did. So that was my number 1 takeaway. Also, number 2, the last stand, I call this one. For the second straight week, the Chiefs' defense has had a chance to seal the win, and for the second straight week, they failed. They were bailed out by the offense and the kicking game in both of those games. The Broncos only had 25 yards on 14 plays in the second half until that last drive when the Chiefs let the Broncos march down the field and get into that position for that end of game a field goal, which was blocked. I think they better figure this out because they aren't winning their games by much, and if they're going to be really close one of these times, they're not going to get bailed out. So I think that's something to watch on the Chiefs side of the ball. Patrick Mahomes on that ankle. He's tweaked his ankle 2 straight games now, and it didn't seem to change his approach. He was pressured throughout the game, including on 8 of 15 first dropbacks to start the game, and he had to scramble quite frequently. He's not played. I don't think he's played that well this year, and now he's playing on a bad ankle. So he takes too much time in the pocket, and in this past game, he missed 2 wide open touchdown passes. Come on. This guy's supposed to be the best quarterback of this generation now, so what's the deal? I'm not so sure. And then my last takeaway is the 4th down decision. Andy Reid, who's usually conservative, went for it on 4th down at the end of the first half and turned 3 points into 7 points. That really made the difference in the game. Kelsey was hit for the TD, the lone TD of the game. It was a tough loss for the Broncos, who are now 5-5. And they've lost 2 in a row now. The Chiefs are 9-0 in the division. The Chargers 6-3. The Broncos 5-5, and the Raiders 2-7. I don't know. It doesn't look like the Broncos are going to make the playoffs to me.
Well, I don't think playoffs was even on the board because their over/under was 5.5. They're already at 5 wins, and I think you look at the schedule coming up. I think there's more wins to be had so far this season. Currently, as it stands, they're in the playoffs still. They're 5-5, and they're still in playoff contention.
Yeah.
So that's the shocking part. I mean, Bo Nix right now throughout this NFL season is the best, technically, statistically. You look at the numbers. Bo Nix, he has 15 touchdowns amongst all rookies. First in touchdowns, first in completions, second in passing yards, third in completion percentage, first in attempts. He's the first in all major passing categories here. It's just that Jaden Daniels has had the explosive plays. He's looked like the better quarterback. Less
Not
turnover.
recently, though. Jaden Daniels faded the last couple of games.
Well, going up against some very good defenses, but for me, I'm standing on business right now. The Chiefs, how long can they sustain close victories like this? Have they had a real feel-good moment so far this season? My answer to that would be hell no. The Chiefs have not had a win where it's like, okay, we played everything perfectly. We played good Chiefs football. Because if we look at the season real quick, the Baltimore Ravens, they were Lamar overshot over Isaiah Likely, and Isaiah Likely's toe being 3 millimeters out of bounds from tying and potentially losing that game. The Cincinnati Bengals, it was left to a 4th and 13 defensive pass interference on the Bengals to win that game. The Falcons, you lost them by 5 points. The Falcons at that point, we were like, oh no, is this Kirk Cousins thing not going to work out? They also have the lowest pressure rate and the highest blitz rate at that time in the NFL. The Chargers, with a team figuring itself out. By the way, you tore your wide receiver's ACL, Mahomes did, by running into his lower leg. You only beat them by 7 points. New Orleans Saints, that was a good one, but we found out that the Saints are big fat frauds. So if you want to include them, by all means, include the Saints as your only real true feel-good win. The 49ers, Brock Purdy had 3 interceptions, all in your territory. Mahomes also had a few interceptions there, and they were pretty bad interceptions. Las Vegas Raiders, a team that Mahomes has the second most wins at Allegiant Stadium, and he's an opposing quarterback. You beat them, by the way, led by Gardner Minshew, Antonio Pierce, and no true weapons, and also, without one of their top-tier pass rushers, you beat them by 7 points. Against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, without his top 2 wide receivers, what did you do? You allowed Baker Mayfield, who the past couple seasons has garnered a lot of respect, but if we look at his career, it's been, pieces of disappointment throughout. He brought you to overtime. Without the top 2 wide receivers of Chris Godwin, who had a tremendous season, and Mike Evans, a little bit of a down year. My guess is he won't continue his 1,000-yard streak, unfortunately. But Baker Mayfield, with his number 3, number 4 receivers leading the way, brought the Chiefs to overtime. And in this game, Bo Nix, who had a terrible start but bounced back, got absolutely blown out last week against the Baltimore Ravens, brought you down, played tremendous, had a tremendous on-the-run throw to Courtland Sutton to set up what would have been the game-winning field goal, and you blocked it. That's how the Chiefs have gotten to 9-0. There have been no feel-good wins besides maybe the Saints, if you want to include them. There have been we played everything so perfectly, Mahomes on point, defense stepping up. This was the first game where the Chiefs had 0 turnovers.
They've won 15 in a row going back to last season.
To me, it doesn't, like, they're lucky to win this game. And by the way, how fortunate was that block? So StatHead, in the last 24 seasons, so this drive finder that they have goes back to 2001. In the 24 seasons, which there's data, no game where a team was going to take the lead on a short field goal, so 40 yards or less, when the clock expired, had ended in a blocked field goal. So in 24 years, this exact situation has occurred 0 times.
Wow, that's interesting.
And you're telling me that this is, we played so well. And I don't really care, but Mahomes running out onto the field like you just won the Super Bowl. You beat up a rookie quarterback on a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, and you played poorly.
Well, they let him off the hook. They let him off the hook.
Was able to
he was ran on the field because he's saying, I'm saved. They aren't going to criticize me.
I'm saved, yeah.
So what the Broncos remaining schedule? Who they got?
The Broncos' remaining schedule. So after this, they're playing versus the Falcons, who have one of the worst pass pressure rates. At Raiders.
They should win that game.
They haven't. Have they played them so far this season? Yes, they won 34-18. Wow. Versus Browns. You love Jameis Winston, but
he regressed to his old self.
So you say 3 wins so far. Versus Colts. We may see Anthony Richardson.
I think they'll win that one too.
So 4 wins. At Chargers.
Nah, I don't think so.
At Bengals.
Nope.
And then versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
Nope. So they got 3 more wins. They get 8 wins this year.
I said 7-10. I'll take you up on that easily. The Broncos they're way ahead of where a lot of people expected them to be. 5.5 was their over-under. I said 7-10. I went out on a limb, and it did not look good. The first game, Bo Nix was throwing into triple coverage and getting intercepted. And then so far, since the first 2 games, he's completed basically 65% of his throws, 10 touchdowns, only 2 picks, one of which bounced off little Jordan Humphrey's arms. And he also has run for 238 yards and 3 touchdowns.
He may wind up being the best rookie quarterback this year.
Not with Jaden Daniels the way he's
playing. I don't know. Jaden Daniels is starting to regress a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, I would still give it to Jaden.
We'll see.
To me, Nix is the second best.
They're not first place in their division anymore. Washington.
Correct.
Yeah, the Eagles, and they're playing the Eagles this weekend at the Eagles.
The Eagles have done a tremendous job.
And the Eagles have done, out of the bye, they've been great. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. No, they've figured out, they're playing very aggressive, really good football, and I have a little bit of a analysis breakdown of.
We're going to talk about that.
I think what Nick Sirianni did pissed off a lot of Eagles fans this past week, but I think it was in preparation for this matchup on Thursday, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But no, yes, you say heart of a champion, figure out a way to win ugly. That's great and all, but what happens when you have another one of these games where you don't block the kick, which is the first time this situation's happened in 24 season? You lose.
Yeah.
What happens if the Bengals don't draw a 4-13 defensive pass interference call? You're going to lose the game. What happens if Lamar decides, you know what, let me play like I have been playing throughout this past 7-ish games. Let me send it on a rope directly to a wide open target. You lose.
What are the Chiefs' remaining schedule?
They're
the Bills, right?
This
the Bills
week you're
coming
at
up.
Bills. You're at Bills.
Well, that is going to be the. We'll see. That's a revenge game for the Bills, and the Bills are playing well this year.
Then they normally beat you in the regular season.
I think Mari Cooper is out, and so is Keon Coleman. I think they're both hurt. I don't know if they're going to play in this game or not. That's something that's important to check. But that's going to be a good game to watch. That will be fun to see whether the Bills can knock them off.
Okay, so you want to know the remaining schedule? So currently, it's at Bills. That's this upcoming game.
Yeah.
Are you doing win-loss here?
I'm not sure. I want to hear the rest of the schedule.
Okay, so then it's at Panthers.
They'll win that one.
So that's a definite W. Versus Raiders.
They'll win that one.
Versus Chargers.
That'll be close, but I think they'll win that too.
At Browns.
Oh, they'll win that.
Versus Houston.
I think they'll probably win that one.
Then we're going at Pittsburgh.
Probably.
They win it?
Yeah.
And then at Denver.
I predict that they lose this weekend against the Bills, and they lose the last game of the season.
15-2 is the record you're looking at.
Yeah.
I would go with, my prediction would be loss against Pittsburgh.
Maybe.
And I would say that the way they're playing, I'd give them a loss against the Chargers. I say 13-4. I agree they do lose this week. 13-4 is my pick. You're going 15-2.
I'm rooting for the Bills.
I think America, outside of Kansas City, is rooting for the Bills.
72 Dolphins are going to start getting worried here pretty soon if the Bills don't. If the Chiefs don't
2007
get nuts.
Patriots is also, even though they didn't go, they went 18-1, but they were one of the best teams in NFL history. I think this might rival.
They have the most consecutive wins ever. I think the Patriots 18.
That would be the 04 to 06 playoffs. I think it's 19 straight wins.
19 straight wins.
And
so
that
the
was
Bills
from
are getting.
04 to.
So the Chiefs are getting close to that. So we're
05.
rooting for the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think America is rooting for the Bills.
Yeah.
Let's get to our next topic here. So Mac Jones in his first start since Week 12, when he was still with the Patriots back in 2023. This is his first start, and it looked okay for 2 drives. Sam Darnold, though, he was. I picked them to cover a 6.5 point spread, and that was a massive disappointment because Sam Darnold, just like Jared Goff was, just on a slightly less clip, decided, you know what, let me throw the ball to the opposing team, and had 3 terrible interceptions. He finished with 24-38, 241 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. Mac Jones, 14 of 22, 111 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. He also getting sacked 3 times. Passer rating of 38.3, while passer rating for Sam Darnold was 48.2. I want to know, though, did this game prove anything to you on the Minnesota side or on the Jacksonville side?
I have one takeaway from this game.
One singular.
One takeaway. Mac Jones was terrible. That's my takeaway. 14 of 22, 111 yards, 2 interceptions, and a lost fumble. He had 5 carries for 8 yards and a TD. Only 5 passes went for more than 10 yards, and he was sacked 3 times. It looks like Lawrence may be lost for the season. He may have to have surgery. That means Jones will be starting next week against the Lions. That's going to be brutal. I just think that's going to be brutal. The game proved to me that Mac Jones is who we thought he was. A gun-shy quarterback who wilts under pressure.
Yeah, no. This actually, if we're taking feelings aside and looking at it from a purely logical, historical, statistical standpoint, the Mac Jones we saw is the Mac Jones that is who Mac Jones is. So my takeaway is Mac Jones is who we thought he was, just like you.
Yeah.
For me, though, this proves one thing and one thing only. Vikings are not going to go far.
You don't think so?
They might make the playoffs. They're not going to go far. Sam Darnold is a massive, massive asterisk on this team's level of success.
He's returning to his prior form.
I mean, some of the interceptions brought me back to when he played the Patriots and said he was seeing ghosts.
3 interceptions, no TDs, and still 1 on the road. 2 interceptions in his previous game as the Colts. Year-to-date stats, 68.6% completion, 2,141 yards, 17 TDs, 10 interceptions, 99.2 rating, but as you mentioned, 48.2 in the game against the Jaguars.
He has the most interceptions in the past 2 weeks. He's tied with Jared Goff, actually, because Goff just threw 5 interceptions. But, he has thrown a tremendous amount of interceptions the past couple weeks. So he's putting his own team in harm's way. Fortunately, though, Green Bay seems to be slipping up with the lackluster play of Jordan Love, and the Bears are terrible. So they've stayed in the exact same spot, even though they're playing poorly. But for me, this is a lot about the Minnesota Vikings because they went up against the second worst pass defense in the NFL, and also one of the worst takeaway teams in the NFL. And they somehow were able to give the ball up like it was nothing, and Sam Darnold and the offense couldn't really get going at all. I expected a blowout. I think I had like 34-17 or 31-17. But guess what? Mac Jones was the only person to score a touchdown this entire game. And he was terrible. Actually, he started off pretty great. Drove down, scored a touchdown, had a couple really nice throws, a couple drops here and there. But he actually looked decently, and then he came back down to earth, as most bad quarterbacks do. Once again, we saw a couple games where Daniel Jones looked very good. Well, he just threw 2 interceptions and came back down to earth. So much so, Brian Daboll sounds like he's already given up on him. And I think that could be in large part due to performance. And also, he has a $23 million injury guarantee, which could seriously affect, how the Giants allocate funds. But for me, though, this says a lot about the Minnesota Vikings. The defense did an okay job against a terrible quarterback. The offense of the Minnesota Vikings, if Aaron Jones goes down, the offense remains stagnant. They couldn't score a single touchdown against the second worst pass defense in the NFL. I mean, this is bad. The Jaguars defense currently ranks as overall the worst defense in the NFL. Points allowed, they're now 27th, allowing 26.4 points. You didn't even half that. That's how bad it is. That's how bad you played. And in fact, the Jaguars entering this game had 5 takeaways throughout the entire season. You actually more than halved them in one singular game. Like, that's just bad play all around. Brian Flores' defense did an okay job, but again, against a banged-up offensive line and just overall bad team with a backup quarterback, then my guess is they brought C.J. Beathard up. We'll probably see him in a week or two, or technically 3 weeks because they have a bye week in week 12. So, this says way, way more about the Minnesota Vikings. They're not true contenders, and I said it a couple weeks ago when they were, 5-0 or 6-0, something like that. I said, well, they're going to go up against the Detroit Lions. We'll see how they look then. They're going to go up against some pretty tough teams, and then what do? They lose to the Colts by 8 points. They lose to the Rams by 10 points. They lose to the Lions by 2 points. But for me, it was, you're 5-0. You're going up against a couple decently hard teams. Show me if you're legitimate contenders. And honestly, after the Lions game, it's like, okay, maybe you are contenders. And then you lose by 10 to a Rams team that just got back some of its players. Like, no. And then Brian Flores' defense seems to be, a little bit lackluster.
No, they still only lost 2 games, right?
You played against one of the worst teams in the NFL.
No, but still, they've only lost 2 games so far.
Right. But now, and to be fair, you actually have a pretty decent schedule.
Let's see what's their schedule.
At Titans, at Bears.
Wait a minute. At Titans, they'll win that one.
At Bears.
They're going to win that one.
Versus Cardinals.
I think they'll lose that one.
Interesting. And then versus Falcons.
I think they'll win that one.
Versus Bears.
They'll win that one.
At Seahawks.
They'll win that one. So they're going to win 5 more games.
Well, then we have 2 more games. Versus Packers at Lions.
I think they'll lose those 2.
So there you go.
So they're going to have 11 wins. They're going to make the playoffs.
They currently have the 21st hardest schedule. They're tied for the 21st hardest schedule remaining. They've played the 6th toughest up until this point.
He's up and down. He may bounce back. He'll have some good games before the end of the season. I think
good because he really had a dominant performance.
Less than 2 interceptions.
That's good. That's good. Well, guess what?
Why don't they just hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs?
Well,
I'm sorry, Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones right now is an injury thing. He keeps getting banged up, and when he goes
then
out,
just throw a short pass to Justin Jefferson. Let him take care of it.
Sam Darnold had a difficult time doing that. Actually, no. 2 of his maybe all 3. I know at least 2 were to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
and it was in tight coverage, and it was like, why the hell are you throwing that pass? He's completely smothered.
they got Hawkinson back.
He's always open. Throw it to him more.
The chemistry there, maybe he hasn't played with Hawkinson before, so maybe they can get something going there.
All 3 interceptions were targeted towards Justin Jefferson. He's trying to force him the football. No, get it to T.J. Hawkinson. He had 90, tied Justin Jefferson for targets, but he had 8 receptions for 72 yards. It wasn't working. The second worst pass defense in the NFL was able to lock down Justin Jefferson.
Why don't they throw it to Jordan Addison?
Jordan Addison, only 3 targets, 25 yards, 3 targets, 2 catches, 25 yards. He hasn't got hardly any
targets this year.
I think that Kevin O'Connell, great head coach, Brian Flores, really good DC, Sam Darnold, bad quarterback. Just how it is. Mac Jones, still a bad quarterback. He looked great through the first drive and a half. And then he resorted back to the Mac Jones we all know and love. So
there was a rumor that the Vikings were trying to get Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, you brought that to the show.
The trade deadline's gone now. They may now wish they really tried hard to do that.
Or just
I was surprised the Rams got beat by the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, that was shocking. Yeah, it was bad. A lot of people talking in sports media today about can the Dolphins make a run? No.
3-6. I don't know. I don't think so.
All right, let's get to our final topic, which is Thursday. It's been a while since we covered a Thursday night game, but Thursday night football, we're talking, it'll be the Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Commanders coming off of a 1-point loss to Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers, while the Eagles, my God, are they back? Is this the 2022 Eagles that we're seeing? Coming off of a massive win against the Dallas Cowboys, 34-6. It got so bad that Cooper Rush got benched for Trey Lance, but don't worry, Trey Lance threw an interception. So that streak of interception when he plays, last time we saw him, he threw 5 picks. Don't worry. The same Trey Lance we see out there, he threw another interception. While even Kenny Pickett came in for a couple pass plays. Jalen Hurts, last time we saw him, 202 yards, 4 total touchdowns, 202 passing yards. He did have 1 interception. But he did get sacked 5 times, which is shocking. But the Commanders, on the other hand, they were toe-to-toe with Russell Wilson, and the Pittsburgh Steelers ended up falling. Mike Williams catching what ended up being the game-winning touchdown in his first game. It was his only target, it was the only target, only reception of the game was a 32-yard touchdown. I'm going to ask you, do you think Jaden Daniels and the Commanders can bounce back with a victory over the Eagles, or will the Eagles continue their winning streak on Thursday night?
I think if the Commanders are playing at home, I would probably pick them, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to pick the Eagles. I think it could be another tough game for the Commanders. The Eagles are now number 5 in the power rankings, and the Commanders are number 8. The Eagles, since the bye, they have 5 straight wins, and they're outgaining their opponents by more than 100 yards in each game. They scored 20-plus points in each of those games and only allowed more than 17 points once. They now have the first place in the NFC East and are in the number 2 playoff spot right now. The team feels a whole lot more steady and secure than the 2023 version when they started out 10-1 and then fell apart at the end. They seem to be kind of flipping the scenario this year, where they can been shaky at the beginning, and in the midseason, they were giving the Sirianni. The crowd was fire Sirianni, fire Sirianni. But now, 5 wins in a row, playing the Commanders at home. I think it looks pretty good for the Eagles in this one. In Washington, they've dropped to number 8 in the power rankings. They lost that heartbreaker on Sunday. I felt bad for them. I'm not a big fan of the Steelers anymore since they benched Justin Fields. I still think that Russell Wilson's going to choke here in one of these games coming up. Daniels didn't have a great game. He was 50% completion percentage, as you mentioned, 202 yards. No TDs, no interceptions. His rating was only 68.5. Fewer than 6 yards per attempt, and couldn't find much room to scramble, which has been a growing trend. I think some of the teams have figured out how to contain him in recent weeks. Steelers played a lot of man defense against him, and it slowed him down. He led by 10 points in the second half, despite all of that. But they couldn't put the game away. The defense allowed a TD in every quarter and had a crushing off-sides penalty at the end of the game with a hard count by Wilson that drew him off sides. Maybe they'll be helped by Marshawn Lattimore when he returns from a hamstring injury. They traded for him from the Saints, and he is a good cornerback. So maybe they get him in there, and that will help their defense. I like the Commanders. I'd love to see them win this game. I just don't think it's going to happen.
And I'm on board with you with this one, but for a slightly different reason. Jaden Daniels in this offense, since Daniels was dealing with that rib injury, he's kind of shifted. A lot less running, a lot less, mobility, moving around the pocket, big time scrambles and all that. So his offensive ability is kind of limited because of himself, because of an injury. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts, though, he stepped it up in a massive way. You bring up that 5-game winning streak. They're doing one thing, and it's glaring: the lack of turnovers, which is massive offensively. And honestly, the past 3 games, they've actually taken the ball away at an insane clip. They have 11 takeaways in 3 games, 5 in this past one. Meanwhile, only giving the ball away, coming out of the bye, only 3 times. Which, in this last game against the Dallas Cowboys, they had 2 turnovers. Their most since week 4. Didn't matter. They won 34-6. So for me, though, this is going to come down to one particular category for the Eagles, which they didn't do actually against the Dallas Cowboys as much as I think a lot of fans and maybe even the Dallas Cowboys thought. They're going to run the damn ball. Saquon Barkley only had, 14 carries, which a lot of people thought he should probably get 20, 25, just how bad, with just how bad the Dallas Cowboys running defense is. But maybe the Commanders, they also are not that great against the run. They're surrendering 142.7 rush yards a game, which is the 5th worst in the NFL. I think Saquon Barkley, I think Jalen Hurts, I think they're going to have tremendous games with running the football. Jalen Hurts had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game against the Dallas Cowboys. For me, the key, and kind of what the key for this entire season for the Eagles has been, effective running the football, and Saquon Barkley having a great game. He's averaging 110.1 yards, rush yards per game, which is second in the NFL. Derrick Henry's on a completely different, island by himself right now. But Saquon Barkley's having a tremendous year, a career year. So for me, the key to success against a very good Washington Commanders team that's, like you talked about earlier on the show, with a quarterback that's regressed slightly, is running the football. So for me, I think this will be, while the defense for the Eagles has stepped it up in big ways, they haven't given up 100 rushing yards. They've only given up 100 rushing yards once since coming out of the bye. I would say that this game is relatively high scoring. My prediction would be Eagles win 31-27. They do cover a 3.5 point spread and continue their winning streak to 6 games.
I have them winning 28-24 and also covering the points.
This is
spread.
Vikings, but it's Eagles. You got the idea.
Thanks.
But yeah, those are our picks for Thursday Night Football. We both have the Eagles, so we'll wait and see. I hate the 3.5 point spread.
I know.
Because if they win on a game-winning field goal, you lose. At least. If like, for instance, the Commanders, if you pick Commanders +3 and they, lose on a field goal, you got to push to get your money
I
back.
haven't been doing so hot on the point spreads lately. What I've learned is a lot of these games are close.
Yeah.
They're a lot closer than you would think. You look at some of these teams and you say, oh, they're going to cover that point spread, 4 points, 3.5,
Yep.
6.5. And they don't.
3 point
And
game.
they don't. These games are very close. Some
Like,
of them
for
1
instance,
point, 2 point games.
Lions was a 3.5 point spread. They went on a field goal. You don't cover. You lose by a half point.
Yeah.
So
The
there you go.
Vikings, Jaguars, right?
6.5. They only scored 5.
points.
Yeah, they only won by 5 points.
Yeah. Oh, well.
There you go. But that does wrap it up for today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We thank you for the constant support. As always, we thank you for tuning into today's show. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Ethan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We've been the host of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday to cover all of Week 11. Harvey Otten had a losing week, but we'll bounce back as always. But yeah, tune in Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Feel better, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 70